Just going live now.
Yeah.
And it's unmuted.
Got it.
Yeah, so you should make one.
I've got to go out and call. I'll come back.
Okay.
He could just be there, but he's just trying to dial in.
Okay, welcome everyone to tonight's council meeting for Monday the 13th of September 2021. As is the current conditions, we are all on Zoom tonight. So the councillors are on the screen and are on Zoom tonight. So we'll start with the opening prayer and acknowledgement. If you could all stand. Lord, we ask that you guide us in our decision making, protect us and the community we serve from all that is evil, and strengthen our unity for the welfare of the city. Amen. I would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people as the traditional custodians of the land that we meet upon today, and pay my respects to elders past, present and future, for they hold the memories, culture, tradition, hopes of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people that contribute to our community. Thank you. Recording of and webcasting the meeting. The council meeting is being webcast and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to being recorded and webcast. Please ensure that if and when you are speaking at this council meeting that you are respectful to other people and use appropriate language. Aubrey accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this council meeting. An audio recording will be made for administrative purposes. Conflict of interest declarations received by the chair. I have one, and it is from Mr. Frank Zachnich. Nature of conflict is pecuniary. Brief description is the CEO performance review. The item is CM 17.1, which is a confidential item, and the action is leave the meeting when the matter is discussed. Mr. Zachnich.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Disclosure of political donations and requirements of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act. There are no development applications before council this evening, so that ends the advice.
Thank you. Okay. Apologies. I believe we're all accounted for. Councillor Cameron's not on the call yet, though. Yep. Everyone on the call? Yep. Beautiful. All right. So no apologies. Merrill minute. There isn't a Merrill minute. Cm6 Action Plans. Thanks, councillors. Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the following action plans be received and noted. 1, actions complete for noting only. 2, actions awaiting response from external parties. 3, actions in progress. And 4, long-term issues more than 3 months.
Thank you. Councillor Glacken.
Happy to second Councillor Thurley's motion.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley, do you wish to speak to that at all?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, there appears to be no questions or debate. Happy to put the motion. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you. Confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting held on Monday, the 23rd of August, 2021. Councillor Doxey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to move the following recommendation as a motion that the minutes of the council meeting held on Monday, 23 August 2021 at 6 p.m. be confirmed.
Thank you. And our latest New Aubrey retiree, Councillor Vanderman.
Happy to second that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Doxey, did you wish to speak to that at all?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
There appears to be no question or further debate. I'm happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Yep, the motion is carried. Thank you. There are no reports from community forums. There are no notices of motion or rescission. There are no presentations of deputations. Theme 11, there are minutes of the Sustainability Advisory Committee held on the Tuesday, the 3rd of August, 2021. Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move that council receives, notes and accepts the minutes and recommendations of the Sustainability Advisory Committee held on Tuesday, 3rd of August 2021.
Thank you, councillor Con.
I second that, Mr.
Thank you, councillor Thurley. Did you wish to speak to that at all?
I think the only thing I'd like to simply say is that it has been a terrific committee, and the contribution of Sam Nidra has been very important, and he will be leaving this committee at some stage. But apart from that, nothing else.
Thank you. Thank you for that acknowledgement. No further questions or debate. Happy to put the motion. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Minutes of the Aubrey Aquatic Facilities Advisory Committee meeting held on Wednesday, the 4th of August. Councillor Gluckin.
Thank you. I'd like to move as a recommendation, move the motion as a recommendation that council receives, notes and accepts the minutes recommendations of the Aubrey Aquatic Facilities Advisory Committee meeting held on Wednesday, 4 August 2021. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Doxey.
Happy to second, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Gluckin, did you wish to speak to that, the minutes at all?
Thank you. No.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley, do you wish to speak to this, or are you just moving to the next one?
Sorry, I was jumping ahead of you.
Oh, okay. So there's no further debate or question. I'm happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. Thank you. Minutes of the Audit and Risk and Improvement Committee meeting held on Wednesday, the 18th of August. Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm just waiting for the thing to come up. Haven't got it up on the screen.
We've got it up here.
Thank you. I move that council receives, notes and accepts the minutes and recommendations of the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee meeting held on Wednesday, the 18th of August 2021.
Thank you. Councillor Gluckin.
Happy to second councillor Thurley's motion.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley, do you wish to speak to that at all?
Briefly, basically, the Audit Committee has indicated, and the Audit Office has indicated that council is working well. One issue arose that just was mentioned, and that is that leave balances in council have been increasing. Partially, this is due to COVID, of course, but the question in an ARIC sense point of view is the issue of people who don't take leave because there might be a risk of fraud. And I understand that our CEO is well aware of this issue, and I don't believe it's a matter, but it was raised in the Audit Committee.
Thank you. Any further questions or debate, councillors? Councillor Vanderman, you got your against card up, or is it a question? Question, yep.
Yeah, sorry, I picked the wrong colour. Just a quick one. I'm just, I'm a little unsure as to how.
I think you're frozen.
Higher leave balances could be attached to perhaps fraud. Could somebody explain what the? Yeah, my internet. Is it come back? You hear me?
Yeah, got it all loud and clear.
Can you hear me at all?
Yep.
Okay.
Councillor Thurley, did you wish to respond to that?
Yes, basically, it's if someone is in a position where they hold a delegation of authority for financial transactions and they don't take their leave because there's something going on, and they're not prepared to walk away and someone else takes over and discovers what's happening. This is a matter that's in customs, excise, in airport security and so on. And it's not a big deal for us, but it is an important one to keep in mind.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
No problem. No further question or debate. Happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? No, the motion is carried. Thank you. 11.4, the minutes of the local traffic committee meeting held on Thursday, the 26th of August. Councillor Stutchbury.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move that council receives, notes and accepts the minutes and recommendations of the local traffic committee meeting held on Thursday, the 26th of August.
Thank you. Seconder, thanks. Councillor Thurley.
I'll second the motion, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Stutchby, do you wish to speak to that at all?
Look, there wasn't much on that particular agenda that I recall. There was an issue of a bollard on the lane going to Holmwood Cross. That was dealt with out of session to the satisfaction of the local residents. So all in all, it was a fairly routine meeting.
Any further question or debate? I noted, Councillor Stutchby, there was conversation about Timbering Street and Gap Road, the measures, the dampening measures. Was that just to confirm that the assets are remaining as they are, or was there any other discussion about further action?
No, there's no plans to change any of those. The things that have been put in the traffic calming devices seem to be working well. There are still some issues of cars losing control on the corner and hitting the safety barrier, and it would appear that the best option to prevent that is to make the road surface much more grippy, but that increases road noise. So that's been set aside. But most of the measures would appear to be successful according to that the survey they presented.
Excellent, thank you. Happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. Thank you, Councillor. CM12 documents for sealing. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Glacken.
Thank you. Happy to move the motion. The recommendation is a motion that council authorises its seal to be affixed to the document outlined below in the presence of two signatories. Authorised to affix the seal pursuant to Regulation 400 of Local Government General Regulation 2005 and the council seal and management of legal documents and advice procedure. A, Aubrey City lease to Thaguna Men's Shed Incorporated, 5 years commencing 15 August 2021, file number 16/01650.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley.
Second the motion, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Glacken, did you wish to speak to that at all? You have a question? Yep.
Thank you. My question is with reference to the women's organisation that now meets out there. I can't remember what they're called. It's not the Women's Shed, but the women who meet out there. Do the men's shed sublease to them, or is it simply a non-official arrangement they have? Because I know the women do meet there.
Thank you. Mr Ferris, are you across that?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Yes, my understanding is that it's an internal agreement between the two parties, but I can certainly take that on notice, Councillor Glacken, and clarify that tomorrow.
Further question?
That's fine. I simply wanted to check that we didn't have a separate lease for the women as well. And I assumed that the women were incorporated within the lease to the men, but I just wanted to double check that we didn't have a separate lease for them. Thank you.
No problem. And we recently had Elise Tomic here for another issue, and he said it's going quite well, and they've adopted the new members really. Most of the members have adopted them, and it's working really well. So all is well that ends well. Any other further questions or debate on this item? No. Happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. 13.1, the Aubrey Local Housing Strategy Project Scope and Stakeholder Engagement Plan. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move that council endorses the general project scope and stakeholder engagement plan for developing a local housing strategy.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Glacken wishing to second. Councillor Glacken.
Yes, happy to second Councillor Thurley, and then I have a question at the appropriate time.
Okay, thank you. I've got two questions. I'll take one from Councillor Con first, and then yourself, Councillor Glacken. Councillor Con.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have two questions, please, through to the relevant member of staff. Noting that the options given in the report were either to endorse the recommendation, not endorse the recommendation, or if there were perhaps an option to progress some, not all of the potential priorities. noting the discussion we had at the previous meeting about perhaps some increased urgency in terms of affordable housing. My personal priority would be affordability out of the potential priorities listed there. But I note that the first order of business in the plan is stakeholder engagement and production of a discussion paper. So my question would be, could we actually put those priorities to the stakeholders and make that decision informed by those discussions and informed by the discussion paper?
Yeah. Ms. Squire. Is that yours, Mr. Christie? Mr. Christie. There he is, got his hand up.
Thank you for the question and for you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we can make certain that when we have the stakeholder discussion paper up front, it can still look at how priorities will be dealt with and if I guess the results of that, without prefacing what they may be, if the results from that are to put forward a sole focus or an increased focus on affordability, then that will be able to be accommodated within.
Thanks.
For Councillor Con?
Yeah.
Did you have a second question? You said you had two.
Yeah, the second question was if we were able to set that focus following the stakeholder engagement, would there be any expectation that the project would be completed quicker, or that we could start to receive staggered recommendations to start implementing while the rest of the items are being investigated?
It's been asked and answered. Is that right, Mr. Christie? Did you just answer that as well?
Thank you for the question for you, Mr. Yeah, I believe I did so. If Councillor Con was happy with my answer.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Councillor Glaken, question?
Thank you. Through you to the most relevant member of staff. Page 34 of our electronic document, a section headed Issues, 5.1.3. These are the anticipated outcomes from the New South Wales Government. One is to support councils to explore potential use of underutilised operational land for the purposes of housing, where this is deemed appropriate by local communities. Is it possible for the staff to give us an example of how that might play out in our LGA, and how that might, if we did have operational land that was underutilised, how that might then feed into the opportunities?
Mr. Christie?
And thank you for the question for you, Mr. Mayor. So I guess without giving an example now, so not to I guess predetermine what the outcomes of this housing strategy, there are some previous examples. So I just had a brain freeze. Kramer Street, sorry, just had a brain freeze for a moment. Kramer Street was a parcel of land in the early 2000s council had considered, and the community agreed was surplus to needs, and that ended up being, in essence, developed as part of the River and Aged Care. Sorry, I'll get the right one. So that's just one local example from Aubrey. I don't want to, I guess, prejudge what might be the examples to come out of this. That'll be part of the investigation, but there are some previous examples that have occurred in the past, not just in Aubrey, but in other communities.
Thank you. So it would be anticipated then that any possible underutilised operational land might be made available, but wouldn't necessarily be developed by council for housing purposes.
Mr. Christie?
Yeah, thank you for the question for you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, in essence, yes, the idea is this, I guess, won't necessarily look at council developing parcels of land, or look at what the opportunities are, whether those opportunities are council-owned parcels of land, there may be state-owned parcels of land, or maybe private-owned parcels of land that may have some opportunities that the housing strategy can put forward. But I don't believe council generally has been involved in housing developments themselves in the past in terms of the delivery.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Christie. Councillor Thurley, did you wish to have a debate on this item?
No, I just think it's a fantastic initiative. We've talked about affordable housing. We've talked about homelessness. I think we really do need to get this one moving, and hopefully that will get state governments thinking seriously about this issue and how they've neglected it for such a long period. So it's a great initiative as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you. There are no further questions on debate. I'm happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against the motion? Is carried. Thank you, councillors. We have 13.2, review of the Aubrey and Lamington CBD master plans, project scope and stakeholder engagement plan. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council endorses the general project scope and stakeholder engagement plan for review of the Aubrey and Lamington CBD master plans.
Thank you. Councillor Doxey.
Happy to second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley, did you wish to speak to that?
I do. It's important that we do review these plans. They are a significant amount of growth and change in both areas, and we definitely need to look at it. I would make one point. It says in the report, improve CBD accessibility, and that this report or this review has a strong relationship with other council projects currently being developed, including the Albury-Wodonga Integrated Transport Strategy. So if we're going to have a proper CBD, a master plan for Lamington and Aubrey, we also, I think, need to have a transport strategy, and it was talked about the night that Billy presented to us. I guess my question, I don't want an answer to this tonight, but do we have we carried out a significantly detailed survey of transport throughout Albury-Wodonga by, for example, determining what times, what people, what locations people are travelling to and from, and the relevant patronage? I think that's just a question that I'll let anyone take on notice so that it can be integrated into this CBD master plan.
Mr. Ferris.
Thanks for the question, through you, Mr. Mayor. That work is currently underway. So we previously, council might recall, previously we did a transport model, a traffic model of recent times in conjunction with Wodonga City. We've upgraded our model and completed a model for Wodonga, so we have a more integrated, holistic approach. So that work's currently underway and will be finalised shortly, which will inform then our integrated transport strategy or some of the basis for our integrated transport strategy.
Yep, thank you. Councillor Vandermeer, did you have a question?
I did, Mr. Mayor. To the most relevant member of staff, I have had occasion over the last few weeks to get back on my bike again and travel around the city, and it's most illuminating. And one of the most interesting issues has been the mishmash of cycling cycling options with the green lanes, both inside and outside. I think that this needs to be a master plan, because I think forward we need to have some decisions made about how we're going to go with this, because at the moment very few people are using the cycle paths, the cycle lanes in our major roads. We talked about the hook turns and all that sort of stuff recently. That's gone nowhere. And I just think that we need to make some strong decisions around where this is going in the future and not waste any more money if we're going to not have a consistent treatment of our roads in terms of cycling access.
Okay, thank you. No further speakers for or against. Councillor Thurley, do you wish to close debate?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. Thank you. 13.3, the Noyle Park Amenities Upgrade Contract number 21/01457. Councillor Glacken.
Thank you. Through you, to move the motion as the recommendation as a motion that council accepts the tender from G&P Connolly Proprietary Limited, trading as Connolly Construction Services, for contract number 21/01457, the Noyle Park Amenities Upgrade, for the lump sum of $319,160, including GST, and B, relocates 100,000 from, including GST, from the public toilet strategy priority project for the project as part of the September quarterly budget review. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vanderman.
Happy to second that motion.
Thank you. Councillor Blacken, I have a couple of questions. You happy for me to take them?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Councillor Con first and then Councillor King.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the relevant member of staff, please, just in regards to part B, that the funding for this project would come out of the other public toilet strategy priorities. I understand that the public toilet strategy implementation in general was an agreed priority of all the councillors, if I recall correctly, and Norriel Park was one of the higher priority sites. But my question is, which sites will be put back by the reallocation of the 100,000 to this project?
Thank you. Mr. Ferris or Mr. Lawson? Who wants to go? Mr. Ferris, Mr. Lawson, please approach.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councillor Con, through you, Mr. Mayor. We don't envisage that it will set back any of the other projects. We still intend to proceed with the priorities within the public toilet priority program. So this would just be a simple transfer of funding to ensure that we have the required dollars to complete this project, but we would still continue with the priorities for the other toilets.
Councillor Con, comfortable with that?
I don't really understand how it's possible, but I've heard the answer.
Thank you. There was another question. Councillor King.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. The reason this initiative was delayed was to look at an alternative of demolishing that toilet block and building a new one. I mightn't have got it, but in the attachments to the agenda, there was no quotes, no alternative plans, no correspondence whatsoever from any other person that we engaged to say, hey, this is what we would do. There was no schematics. All there was 2 lines of a person saying it will cost $700,000. I would have thought that the intention of Councillor Stutchbury's original motion was we got more of or got a better answer than what we got. So is there a reason why that's all that we received when it was a specific motion of council that we got a specific request to look in detail at demolishing and rebuilding and looking at the other alternatives?
Thank you, Councillor King. Mr. Lawson, I said in the body of the report, did you wish to speak to that?
Yeah, thank you for the question through you, Mr. Mayor. We did go back to the original consultant, Donald Cant Watson Cork, who developed the original quote for the refurbishment. What we did ask them to do was to look at a high level what it might cost to replace that structure with the exact same structure, so that we weren't spending any funds to get into any detailed design, because that will cost some money. Certainly, we asked them to just review that plan and provide an estimate on what it would cost to rebuild that structure in its current location. So short of asking them to develop a design which would then run into some tens of thousands of dollars, that was the position we took to try and gauge if it was effective to replace it, and therefore if council decides that is the way they wish to go, then we would engage a designer to undertake a detailed design of the new toilets.
Okay, thank you. Councillor King, you happy with that?
Not really. Nothing more.
Yeah. Councillor Cameron, you have a question also. Okay.
Hello.
Yep.
I hope not too much of my cursing made the recording. I'm unable to examine some of the detail I wanted to because once again, the technology has utterly failed me. I went to update documents on TAP and it produced an email with a code that asked me to do that. And accordingly, it's rejected the code and I didn't have time due to work to engage with the staff today to fix that. So I've just managed to download the plans off the general website, the council website. And can I ask, looking at the plans through you, Mr. Mayor, to the most appropriate member of staff, the female and male, the male is on the right, is that correct? And as labelled, and the female is on the left? And why is there a baby change in the male bathroom?
Mr. Lawson?
Yeah, thank you for the question through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't actually have the plans in front of me. I'm sorry, Councillor Cameron, but I can take that on notice and come back to you with an answer to that. Yeah, my technology at the minute is not allowing me to have too many things open while Zoom's going.
Well, I will say this, Mr. Mayor, I'm not prepared to spend $319,000 of the ratepayers' money on what I think is a very exorbitant price for a toilet until we can get further details of the planned structure and layout of these proposed toilets. I mean, people build houses for that amount of money. I can't believe that that's the cost to refurbish and not totally rebuild, but just to refurbish some toilets. But there we go. Anyway, I won't be supporting any motions to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. No further questions. Councillor Gluck, and finally back to you to open debate.
Thank you. Very briefly, I'm entirely comfortable with the report and the content therein, that the quantity surveyors were asked to reassess what it would be to rebuild the facility, and entirely comfortable with making a decision tonight as to whether or not we should rebuild or go with the recommendation as a motion. The reality is that if we rebuild, then it's going towards another $500,000 again from what it will cost to refurbish those facilities. They are public toilets. They are heavily utilised all through the year, and it's important that we have good facilities, as we as council have all agreed that we would work towards a good and robust public toilet facility concept through the entire city. So this is one of those areas where we're working towards that. I believe that it is very cost effective to do the renovation and that we do not need to rebuild the facility. So I support the recommendation from the staff tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have a speaker for, but I have another question. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to any member of staff that can answer the question. Are there urinals provided in this toilet? I can't tell from the plans on the internet. Can someone elucidate me as to that? And if there are they in both the male and the female toilets? And also, is there only a baby change area, as it would appear from the plans, in the male toilets and not in the female?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Dagnich.
Just very briefly, I know this is going into the detail. The baby change area is accessed separately from any of the male or female toilets, according to the proposed revised plan.
What?
And the question regarding urinals in the male toilets. I think that's answered the two questions.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councillor Cameron.
It has in no way answered the two questions. First of all, I presume WHU are the urinals in the male toilet. What are the objects marked HB2, HB2, HB2?
The hand basins, through you, Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry, I was only interrupting you by asking.
Sorry.
I had no.
And basins, Councillor.
Thank you for that. And the entrance to the general male toilet is very clearly marked G2, a door, which then, if that is the entrance to D7, which is the entrance to the baby change and the change generally, it just makes no sense whatsoever, this plan, because you would have people emerging from the toilet area of the male to D6. So either we're looking at separate plans and the plans on the general internet are not, on the council internet page are not accurate, or someone has managed to put the baby change room in the male toilet. I don't know, maybe it's intentional. Maybe it's part of the agenda of some people to have more progressive arrangements as they see them. I don't know. But I know I won't be voting for this.
Yeah, look, I'm looking at the plan in front of me, and it has a separate door as well for the baby change area. But from memory, can someone elucidate me whether or not the current setup is that configuration? The males are the first toilet. Mr. Lawson, do you know that for?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, as I said, unfortunately, I'm just having trouble pulling it up. I do apologise, but I can certainly take the questions on notice and come back to councillors around the configuration of the toilets and confirm some of those issues.
Okay, so from my recollection, I think the male toilets are actually the other way around currently. I don't know, I'm not sure. All right, speaker against, Councillor Cameron, then a speaker for Councillor Con. Councillor Cameron.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I mean, if we're going to get the detail around these important questions on notice, which is, I guess, is fair enough, then surely we should be making the decision to expend this amount of money at a later stage also. It is preposterous and would be irresponsible, given the questions that have been raised and not answered tonight, for councillors to go ahead and allocate this expenditure. So I would urge councillors to vote against this motion, and if necessary, this matter can be brought back to the council when we have the accurate information requested. Thank you.
So, Councillor Cameron, in that debate, is it my understanding you're foreshadowing an alternative motion if this motion is lost?
I'm not convinced that's necessary from a procedural point of view, Mr. Mayor, but I'm happy to provide that if it will put people's minds at rest.
We'll have to bring it back.
Thank you. Speaker for Councillor Con.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I was quite happy to support the previous deferral motion so that the question could be answered around the cost of demolition and rebuild. And I think the cost that we've been provided just to knock down and rebuild the same structure without an alternative design or any upgrades is sufficiently high that I'm quite happy now, having been provided with that information, to go ahead with the refurbishment. I do have the plans in front of me. There's quite clearly D4 is a door off the main corridor. I'm very happy that parents of all genders can access the baby change room off the main corridor. And having had no technical issues and a fair few days to look at those plans, I feel comfortable supporting them. Thanks.
Thank you. Any more questions or speakers for us? No. Councillor Blacker, did you wish to close? Oh, we've got a speaker against, Councillor King.
Yeah, look, you can hear me. I'm speaking against this. I think the spirit of Councillor Stutchbury's original motion was not just to knock it down and replace it. It's just been taken absolutely literally to have an ambient figure of $700,000, which you can build a 5-bedroom house, 6-bed, it's just insulting. And this is not the spirit of what Councillor Stutchbury and I believe wanted. It could have a great opportunity to knock something down that's old, that's tired, to expand it. We've got no details of what that 700 grand is. We've got no plans. We've got no other thing other than knock it down. And, it's very poor form on behalf of the staff. So I'm voting against it.
Thank you. Speaker for, is that Speaker for Councillor Vanderman, is it? You wish to speak?
Yes, Mr. Mayor,
We should pause this video and just his audio.
I'm happy to fill in for him, Mr. Mayor, if you wish.
I don't often concur with Councillor Con, but I do under. I've got a shocking internet. Sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Van der Ven, what if you pause your video and
Getting
just leave it
NBN
as that?
fixed wireless tomorrow. Can you hear me? How's that? So
Yeah.
can you hear me now?
Clear as a bell.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so basically, despite the councillor's objections, I think that the spirit of Councillor Stutchbury's motion has been met in terms of investigating the cost of pulling down and rebuilding of these toilet blocks, and to suggest that the council staff are insulting the Councillor Stutchbury is in itself insulting. I have had a chance to look at these plans and meet the requirements. It continues the strategy that we've all decided on to upgrade and make sure that our toilet facilities have the highest standard. So I have no issues at all supporting this particular motion.
Thank you. Okay, no further questions or speakers for or against. Councillor Glackman, would you like to close debate?
Thank you. Yes, I would be delighted to. It's clear from the plans that we can see, and I'm sorry, Councillor Cameron can't see them, but D4 is the door, as Councillor Con has pointed out.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Cameron, what is your point of order?
At no point did I state that I couldn't see the plans. I very clearly explained that I was looking at the council's public website and have perused them in detail from there.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Yes, you did state that. Councillor Glackman, we just withdraw that and continue. Thanks.
Yes, I'm sorry that Councillor Cameron cannot see the plans that we have in our documents that clearly shows that D4 is a door that enters into the baby change room and is clearly from the outside, so not from either the male or the female toilets. These are significant public toilets within our community and they are heavily utilised. So it's important that we do upgrade them. And I am delighted that we are able to find a more cost-effective way than removing the toilets and then rebuilding them. And I look forward to being able to utilise the new toilets down in that facility. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Happy to put the motion. All those in favour of the motion, thanks. Those against? The motion is one. Thank you, councillors.
I'm not sure, Mr. Mayor, whether you could see my vote because I had the video stopped.
Yeah, no, I was happy to accept that you spoke for because your video's turned off and you spoke for it as a result.
Yeah.
So happy to note that on our on the minutes, Councillor Van der Ven. No problem. Okay, 13.4, addition to the meeting schedule of council meeting on 10th of January 2022 for mayoral elections. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council endorses the addition to the council meeting schedule of an ordinary meeting on Monday, the 10th of January 2022, in order to fulfil the requirements of Section 290 of the Local Government Act 1993, New South Wales.
Thank you. Councillor Doxey.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley, do you wish to speak to that at all?
No, just to note it's a procedural matter as a result of the postponement of the elections.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron, did you wish to speak or did you wish to vote?
I wish to speak in favour of the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
May I?
Yep. Yes, you can.
As has been noted, this is a facilitative procedural motion to give effect, and it's necessary because, incredibly, in my view, the New South Wales Liberal government is going to go ahead with what must be one of the greatest acts of folly in political history and New South Wales history, which is to deliberately, in a time of a pandemic, conduct an election which must, at least in part and in the majority, perhaps, be composed of people congregating to vote at a polling station or stations. Yes, they've broadened the political, the postal voting options, but this is an act of madness. Having mismanaged this pandemic, this state government is now willfully, in my view, putting people at risk. Crazy idea, but I'll vote for the facilitated motion though. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for the debate. Councillor Fairley, do you wish to close debate on that note?
No, Mr Mayor, please put the motion.
I'm happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, the motion is carried. Thank you. CM 13.5 is the appointment of external independent member to the Aubrey City Audit Risk and Improvement Committee. Councillor Glacken.
Thank you. Through you to move the recommendation as a motion that council appoints Dr. Jason Young as an independent member of the Aubrey City Audit Risk and Improvement Committee for a 3-year term commencing 1 October 2021 and finishing on 30 September 2024.
Thank you. Councillor Fairley.
Second the motion, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Glacken, did you wish to speak to that? I see in the report you did an exhaustive process of selection.
Yes, we actually had a couple of rounds and it's taken some months to be able to achieve this, but we had some fantastic candidates and I'm very pleased to be able to say that we had some really good opportunities to discuss a number of aspects with each of them. And I believe that we could have appointed a number of different people, but the candidate we've selected is a standout. Thank you.
Thank you. Question from Councillor Vandervan.
Mayor, it's just interesting that in the first iteration of the short listing of candidates, there were 3 candidates shortlisted and one was chosen who then was not able to take on the role. I'm just wondering whether the 2 that were shortlisted in that first time were they also shortlisted the second time.
Thank you. Councillor Glacken, you might be able to answer that question.
Yes, and I'll ask the staff, Kate, if she might confirm that my understanding is correct, that we didn't have the same 2 people did not apply that second round. It was a completely separate round, separated by a couple of months.
Ms Stevens.
Thank you for the question. Through you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Glacken's response there is correct. There were 2 very separate recruitment processes and the second recruitment process had significantly more applicants than the first and a very thorough recruitment process was undertaken.
Thank you, Ms Stevens. There's your answer to the question, Councillor Vandervan.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, happy to put the motion. All those in favour? As against, the motion is carried. Thank you. CM 14.1, 2021 Works Program Status Report June quarter. Thank you. Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move that council receives and notes the report on final status of the 2020-2021 Works Program.
Thank you. Councillor Doxey.
Happy to second, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley, do you wish to speak to that at all?
I simply note that it's a pretty good result in what's been a very difficult time.
Thank you. Any other questions or debate? No. Happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. There are no delegates' reports for noting. Notice of urgent business. Anyone with any urgent business? Councillor Cameron and Councillor Con. Councillor Cameron first.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to raise for council's consideration or further elucidation, as we've seen tonight, the appalling state of internet provision of services in our electorate of Farrer. It's just disgraceful. And when I think that in the last federal election, in response to questions about this, Ms Susan Lee said, not everybody needs a Rolls Royce sitting in the garage or in the driveway. And that was the same statement made at the previous federal election. It's no wonder that we can't conduct effectively in this day and age a council meeting by telemetry when that's the lack of concern that our federal member has for this very important and vital issue.
Thank you. Thank you for that for that information. Councillor Con, did you have an item?
I did. I was hoping to move that council congratulate our youth mayor, Eli Davern, who I understand, having been nominated by Xavier High School, has been awarded the Order of Australia New South Wales Youth Community Service Award from the New South Wales Governor.
Thank you. I did note that. Councillor Thurley.
I'd like to second that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, happy for us to acknowledge him, Councillor Con. I noticed it's in our media pack on email, so happy to forward a letter to Eli and congratulate him on his wonderful award.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor King, did you have a matter you wish to raise?
No, I was just voting for that motion.
No, we don't have a motion to put. I just agreed to send a letter. That's fine. No other business? Okay, we'll move on to our confidential matter. Councillor, moving into... Thank you, Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council moves into confidential to discuss item CM 17.1, as this is a confidential item exclusive of press or public on the grounds that the matters relate to the matters and information are the following: personnel matters concerning particular individuals other than councillors, Local Government Act 1993, number 30, section 10A2A.
Thank you, Councillor Glacken.
Happy to support Councillor Thurley's motion.
Thank you. I don't think there's anyone in the chamber or online that would oppose this going into confidential at this point. I can't see anyone, so happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll just wait for Mr. Zagnis to leave the